Hey everyone, in this video, I'll be talking about how you can set up workflows to use for your different assignments in Flow. You can think of these workflows as the system or the hierarchy of who is going to need to review a particular assignment before it's completed and ready for publishing. In other words, when the assignee is finished, who will need to look it over and make edits to it. Workflows can be comprised of key editors, such as your assignment type or story tag group editors. They can also include any custom groups you create beyond those key editors. And then lastly, they can include individual users as well. And workflows can be as simple or as complex as you want them to be. For instance, I might have a workflow that just has two steps in it, maybe a section editor and then my editor in chief. On the other hand, I might have a more complex workflow with many steps. I might have one with my section editors, then my publication editor, then maybe some copy editors, etc. So it's up to you how you want to set up your different workflows. You have a lot of options, lots of room for customizing them for your publication. That said, before you create new workflows, you should make sure you have all of your key editors and your groups designated first. There are two places. We'll start with key editors. There are two places to set those up in Flow. You can have assignment type key editors and story tag group key editors. To get to those locations, you'll want to make sure you're in your Flow settings. And let's start with assignment types. I'm going to click into there. So remember that assignment types are the products or the content that your staff will be creating for your stories. We do have a separate support resource on how to customize the assignment types themselves, so be sure to check that one out if you haven't already. When I am in the assignment types area, you'll notice this column here where I can designate my key editors. So for instance, if I have a writing editor who's going to be editing all of my writing assignments, or if I have maybe some video editors, I can choose those key editors here for my assignment types. Once you've selected your key editors for your assignment types, make sure to click on Save Assignment Types up in the top corner there. The other spot where you can assign key editors is story tag groups. So if I click on the story tag groups, again, still working in my Flow settings, I can set key editors for any of my tags here. And so remember that these story tag groups are going to be best for filtering or organizing where your stories are going. And again, we do have a separate resource that talks more about story tag groups. So be sure to check that out if you have any questions about setting these up. Similar to assignment types, I can choose the tag group that I want to edit and note the key editors column here so I can set my key editors for any of these tags. So where I often see this used is with sections. If I have maybe a couple news section editors, maybe I have a sports editor, an opinion editor, and so on, I can select those key editors here. I can do that for any of my other tag groups as well. So maybe I have a newspaper print editor. I can select that key editor here. And maybe I have an online EIC or something. I can select that person here. Once you have your key editors designated in your story tag groups, make sure to save tag groups up at the top there. Lastly, in addition to setting up your key editors for assignment types and setting up your key editors for your story tag groups, you can also create any custom groups beyond that to then add into a workflow. So let's say I've got some key editors for my assignment types, I've got some key editors for maybe my sections, but maybe I have multiple EICs that I want to put in the same group, or maybe I want to create a group for all of my copy editors. You can create custom groupings beyond the key editors. To do that, I'm going to click on the groups icon here on the left. And from here, it's as simple as creating a new group. So again, let's say I have a couple different EICs. I can create a group and then add those users to the group here. And again, once I create a group, I will have the option to add that group into a workflow. Okay, so now that I have all of my key editors assigned and I have my extra group created, I am ready to go ahead and add a workflow. So to set up a workflow, I'm going to go back to my settings here, and then I'm going to click on the Workflows tab, and we will create a new workflow. The first thing I'm going to be prompted to do here is give my workflow a title. I'm going to call this one Writing Workflow. And then I will also be prompted to select which assignment types are going to use this workflow. Since this one is called writing, let's say my writing assignments will use this workflow. From there, I can add the different steps to my workflow. And remember, I said at the beginning, this can be as simple or as complex as you want. So I'm going to make this one kind of more complex just for demonstration. I'll be showing you how to add all of these steps into a workflow. So for this particular workflow, the first group that I want to view my writing assignments once they're finished is my section editors. To add those section editors, I'm going to need to add a tag group to my workflow. And the tag group that I want is sections, because again, I want my section editors to view it first. Once I get to this point in the workflow, when an assignee passes it to this step, Flow is going to automatically send it to the correct section editors based on how the story is tagged. So for example, if I open up a story here, because I've tagged this as a news section story, when I get to that point in the workflow, it's going to automatically send it to whoever I've designated as my news section editors back in those story tag groups. So maybe after my section editors, I want to send it to my assignment type editors. In this case, whoever I have designated as the writing editors. I can add an assignment type to the workflow. Again, Flow is going to automatically send this to whoever I have designated as my writing assignment type editors back in that assignment types tab here. Then maybe from there, the next group or the next step is going to be that EICs group that I just created. So I can add any of my custom groups in here, select the group that I want. And then lastly, I have the option to add individual users to a workflow. So maybe the last person who's going to look this over is my advisor or my EIC. I can add them as an individual user into that workflow. And if you ever notice as you are setting up or editing your workflows that they are not in the order you want, you can easily click and drag and rearrange the order of these steps. Awesome. So now that I've got this workflow created, let's go back to the stories page and see it in action. I'm going to go back to that stories page, click on my story here, and to assign a workflow or select a workflow for a story, I'm going to click on select workflow. And there I can see that writing workflow that I just created. So let's go ahead and select that one. Here I can see all of those steps in my workflow. So again, it's going to go to the section editors first, then the writing assignment type editor, then that group I created for EICs, and then finally that individual user. So for the assignee, when they are finished, they are going to see this green Submit to Workflow button. And when they do that, it is going to send it into the first step of that workflow. What that will look like for the people in that step is they will get notified that an assignment has been passed to them in the workflow, and they will be able to open it up and see two options up here at the top. They can either return that assignment for revisions, or they can approve and submit it to the next step in the workflow. So let's say I'm the section editor, I come in, look at the Google Doc, make some suggestions for revisions. I can click on this red button to return it to the original assignee. And what that's going to look like, the assignee is going to get it back. They're going to be able to see who returned it to them, and they can go in, make whatever changes they need to, and resubmit it back into the workflow there. So that process is just going to repeat all the way to the end of the workflow. So again, when somebody in the workflow gets notified that the assignment has been passed to them, they can either return for revisions or approve and send it to the next step, all the way down until the final step or person approves it, at which point it is ready to go. The other thing I'll point out here is that if you have a step in a workflow with multiple people, like I can see that in my section editor step here, only one of them has to approve it in order to send it on to the next step in the workflow. So, in this case, I was a section editor, I approved it, so it goes to the next group without Kyle having to look at it. The last thing to know about workflows is that I can either manually select them here, like I did for this story, Or I can set them to default to a particular assignment type. So let's say this new writing workflow I created, I want this to show up by default on all of my new writing assignments. I can actually set it up to do that. To set a workflow to default to a particular assignment type, I'm going to click on the settings, assignment types, and then I can select the default workflow in this second column here. So again, maybe for all my writing assignments, I want that writing workflow to default. I'm going to select it and save. And now if I go back to my stories page and let's create a new story just to see. If I select a writing assignment for this story, you'll note that that workflow automatically defaults here. So those are the steps to creating your workflows. Again, I recommend making sure that you set up key editors first for your assignment types and or your story tag groups, and then also recommend creating any custom groupings beyond that first before you build out your workflows. If you have any questions about workflows or anything else flow related, feel free to check out our other flow resources or send us a ticket at support@snowsites.com. Thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.